Hi Kpop-TV, my name is Stefan Lee and I am the author of K-Pop Confidential and K-Pop Revolution, the new sequel. And this is about Candace Park, a Korean-American teenager who travels to Korea to enter the K-pop industry and completely revolutionize it.
Stefan Lee is the author of K-Pop Confidential and its highly anticipated sequel, K-Pop Revolution. Not only is he a fan of K-pop, Stefan is also a journalist turned author that has interviewed his own fair share of K-pop idols. In his books, we follow the journey of a Korean-American trainee as she rises to the top of the K-pop world and then comes crashing down. Hi, I'm Gemma and welcome to the Red Carpet. I'm delighted to be talking today with Stefan about his latest book, K-Pop Revolution. Hi Stefan, thank you for joining us today.
Hi Gemma, it's so exciting to be here with you.
Your book features the experience of a Korean-American trainee rookie idol, and for our audience that loves K-pop, this will be a special treat for them. Can you tell us about K-Pop Confidential and how it relates to K-Pop Revolution?
Sure. So K-Pop Confidential is really all about the trainee process in K-pop, which is pretty notorious for being very tough and very high stakes. So our hero is Candace Park, who is from New Jersey, Korean American, but very Americanized. And she, on a whim, decides to audition for the biggest K-pop company in the world, SAY Entertainment, which also has the biggest boy group in the world, SLK, and they're looking for their first ever girl group. So she actually ends up passing the audition and has to fly to Korea. But before that, she has to convince her parents to allow her to do this. And they are not the types of parents who would be that thrilled about their kid becoming a K-pop star. So once she's actually there, she realizes it's so much harder than she actually realized, not just because of the crazy schedule, but also the kind of emotional toll of always being told you're not good enough yet, or you need to work a lot harder, and all the rules and the differences in culture that she's not really prepared for, and also the dating bans, which if you know about K-pop, that's usually a thing where K-pop idols are not encouraged to date each other at all, or explicitly forbidden. So the first book, K-Pop Confidential, is about her whole journey in surviving this whole program. But then K-Pop Revolution, this isn't really a spoiler, but she does get to debut in a girl group. And this is all about what happens from then on, because the first book ends with a big cliffhanger. And she, speaks out about the industry, and it becomes big news. But then in the second book, she actually has to live that out. She says that she wants to be a change maker, but then in K-Pop Revolution, she actually has to do it. And that's a lot harder, and there's so much scandal and so much glamour at the same time.
I think a lot of our audience is going to be really interested in this book. As a K-pop fan, what was your inspiration for the story?
Well, I always thought that somebody should write a K-pop young adult novel because it just seemed to lend itself so well. I actually thought of The Hunger Games. And, that is, dystopian fantasy, but in some ways, K-pop and the whole trainee process and just like the kind of Thunderdome nature of it is the closest thing to the Hunger Games in real life that I could think of. Just where the expectations for very young people is so extraordinarily high, and the consequences are so extraordinarily high too. So I just thought it would just be a perfect backdrop. And I also wanted to make my main character Korean American because I'm Korean American, and we all know the feeling of going to Korea as a Korean American. You're just like, oh, everyone looks like me. But then you realize you're very foreign.
As a journalist, you interviewed a lot of K-pop idols. Did you have to do any other special research for the book?
Well, I definitely did do a lot of research for the book. I watched as many YouTubes as I can about former trainees or, current idols who opened up about the whole process. But actually, not that many K-pop idols want to talk that in depth about the trainee process or, the rookie year and everything that goes on behind the scenes. So I did have to use a lot of my imagination at the same time because I thought just emotionally, Candace's experience would probably not be that different from an elite athlete who's trying really hard for an impossible goal, or a good student who's really trying to get into the best college, or someone who just graduated who's trying to enter a very competitive job market. So I really wanted everything that she goes through to be very specifically K-pop, which a lot of people cannot really relate to, but I wanted her emotional experience to be very relatable and universal. And actually, when I was at Entertainment Weekly as a journalist, as a staff writer, they sent me to Korea for 3 weeks to report a story about the rise of Korean entertainment. But this was all the way back in 2014. We didn't even know how big Korean entertainment would get all around the world back then. But still, 2014, there was 21, there was Big Bang, there was Psy, a lot going on. So that's why I went over there. And it was funny because at Entertainment Weekly, if I want to talk to a big A-list celebrity, all I really have to do is email their publicist, and then I'm on the phone with them the next minute, basically. But with Korean stars, Entertainment Weekly could not help me. They were like, we don't know how to do this, so you have to go figure it out. So I didn't really have any contacts either, so I actually got my mom, who moved back to Korea a while ago, to help me, and she emailed a lot of people for me. And I don't even know how she did it because she's not in the entertainment industry, but she somehow got me interviews with Bong Joon-ho, who directed Parasite. She got me interviews with Ailey, who's amazing. Just all these huge stars. Tiffany Young from Girls' Generation. And I learned so much from that trip. I just learned how intense the world is and how important K-pop and Korean entertainment is to Korean culture and Korea's standing in the world. So I learned so much, and I actually used a lot of that information for both these books. And it's good that I got to use it finally, because I didn't actually get to write the article, because on the plane ride back to the States, the editor-in-chief of Entertainment Weekly changed over. That happens all the time in media. And the new editor-in-chief was like, oh, why did he assign this? I'm not really that interested. So I did get to finally use all that information.
That's amazing that you did all the research prior to writing your book back in 2014.
Yes. No.
Why did you choose to write the story from Candace's point of view?
Well, I get this question a lot, as in, why did I choose to write from the point of view of a girl? And the thing is, I have always been interested in pop music, not just K-pop, but growing up, I was obsessed with, all top 40 radio. And I was just never that interested in male stars. I don't know why. I wasn't into the boy bands as much. I was just really into like Britney, Spice Girls, Destiny's Child, Christina, like just all the female stars. And I just think there's something fascinating about, big female icons. I feel like the reason why people love them so much is because they are kind of fierce and amazing, but also very vulnerable at the same time emotionally. And I think that mix is really captivating, and also in K-pop too, because, other than BTS, all my K-pop, favorites are girl groups or female soloists. So just out of interest, I was only ever going to write about a member of a girl group. And I also think that because, there are some double standards in any entertainment industry, including K-pop, about female stars. I thought it would just be a little more interesting to capture her point of view.
Definitely. I thought Candace's journey was so important to hear about, just because of the things that she experiences that, generally boys won't experience. And,
Exactly.
One day girls are going to rule the world. So
already do, I think.
Yes. We're working towards it, but it will definitely happen. Your main character experiences things that fans don't generally hear about, including the negatives in K-pop. Were there real life inspirations for this?
Absolutely. You always hear about, scandals in K-pop and just the kind of human toll that they can have on the real human beings. It's easy to think of idols as, it's in the word idol, someone who's really set apart from you. But really, I just wanted to show that these are all human beings. They all have interior dialogues just like us. And yeah, I was inspired by certain pitfalls that stars go to specific to K-pop. I mean, I think it's interesting how in the American, entertainment industry, there are certain types of scandals, but the bar for what counts as a scandal is pretty high. Whereas in K-pop, it seems like, oh, someone looking a little bit annoyed for a second, or, someone being shown like holding hands with someone can be a huge thing that like could destroy a career. And I wanted her to kind of struggle with that and just struggle to understand that a little bit and also respect it, because I don't know, I think in American media, when talking about K-pop, there's a lot of talk of, oh, it's so brutal, it's so blah blah blah, but in reality, entertainment industries all around the world are, I think, equally rough and equally kind of traumatic to people who go through them, but maybe in different ways. So I wanted to make sure that Candace wasn't coming in and judging everything, but just struggling to understand.
What about author liberties? You had mentioned that you had to use a lot of your own imagination for this.
Yes, so there were certain things that I completely made up, and part of it was, just for the story, but also just to make sure that the company or the groups that are, mentioned in the book are nothing like real counterparts, because I didn't want to make it seem like I was telling another person's real story. So at the company that I created, SAY Entertainment, all the trainees live in a skyscraper, like right above the corporate offices. And I don't think that happens anywhere in K-pop, but maybe it could. So that was a liberty that I took just to make it a little more fun and exciting, and also differentiate it from real life. And it's funny because a lot of the things that I thought I made up, I have a friend who went through a K-pop trainee process. I can't, say their name or what company they were at, but they actually told me that so many things that I thought I had completely made up were incredibly true to life. As in, I made up how kind of divided the company is with boys and girls, and just got very specific with it. There's like a glass that separates them in the cafeteria so they can see each other but not talk to each other. So it almost makes them eat less, which is so awful. But I just thought it made sense in the world of K-pop. And this former trainee told me that exactly happened. No one ever talked about it. Like, how did you know that? And I was like, I made it up. So it's kind of funny how certain things that I thought I would make up, once I was kind of in the zone of this whole world, actually turned out to be accurate.
What are your thoughts on the ethics of companies expecting perfection when we have flawed and human characters?
Yeah, so I think that's at the heart of both of these books, because, these books are kind of a generational conflict story, because as, is happening in society all around the world, not just America, I think a lot of young people, especially the group of young people designated as Gen Z, are really striking out against having to follow rules that were put in place by older generations. And there's kind of the question of, why do we have to follow these exact rules made by people who are not going through what we're going through right now? And I think there's no better kind of metaphor for that than the K-pop world. And I really wanted to explore that. And the whole need for perfection is something that I really explored more of in K-pop Revolution, because there is no such thing as perfection, and the desire or the pressure to be perfect is so harmful. And it's ultimately not even that relatable. And I think people really want to relate to their idols in some way. While, idols are impossibly glamorous, and that's great, I think they also want to see the human side. And it's funny because I was just finished writing K-pop Revolution around the time when Simone Biles and Naomi Osaka were making really big waves for kind of putting their human side first above perfection in their sports. And that really resonated with me and what I was trying to do with Candace's story.
It's so important to show that even though like these people up there are so like glamorized and idolized, they are still human, and we need to respect them as humans as well.
Yes, and I also wanted to just show that sometimes the mistakes that idols make are really not really harming anybody, yet they get treated as if they are. And the mistakes are just them being human, not like malicious. So I really wanted to show her being very flawed. She does a lot of things that she's not really supposed to. But at the end of the day, it's not because she's a bad person, it's because she's a person.
Exactly. You also explored the concept of being an artist versus being an idol, such as being an idol with open flaws. What were you trying to convey?
So I don't think that idol and artist is actually, mutually exclusive, but that is a distinction I make for Candace, just for her to figure herself out and what she wants to do with her creativity. So she wants to be an artist in the sense that she wants to run her own career eventually, and she wants to write her own music and make a lot of her own creative decisions. But she also sees the need to be an idol first because she needs to make her debut successfully as part of this group and follow the rules of her company first, because she feels like if once she accomplishes that, then she'll have some freedom in the future. And I think a lot of industries, a lot of things work that way. You sort of have to pay your dues before you can do what you really want. And I think that's important and completely valid, but she also has to struggle with how much do I have to follow these rules before I get to do what I want, and how much can I actually skip that part and actually just go to the artistry that I really want to do. So that's kind of an internal battle, especially in K-pop Revolution.
So you mentioned boys versus girls earlier. Boys in your book tend to get away with the scandals, but the girls are the ones that get punished. What are your thoughts on this?
Yes. Yeah, I think that's just a general kind of universal problem that there is in society. I think that boys do tend to get the leeway because maybe girls are expected to be more sensible. So if they mess up, it's almost intentional, whereas if boys mess up, it's accidental. And I don't think that either should be punished more severely than the other, but maybe some more equality is needed. So there's a line in K-pop Revolution, I don't even remember it completely, but an executive says, oh, this is why we haven't debuted a girl group. Girls have more scandal. And then Candace replies, no, girls don't create more scandal, we're just forgiven for less, which I think is true, because I think even with the fandom, female stars get a lot more flack, or at least certain scandals seem to follow them for a lot longer. So definitely wanted to get to the root of what that's all about.
No, that line was definitely powerful, and I felt it so much when I read the book myself.
Oh, good.
What do you hope readers will feel about the K-pop industry after reading the story?
I hope readers will just see how fun it is and how innovative it is, because even though the books both get into some things that are difficult about the K-pop industry, ultimately I do think that they are celebrations, because the problem isn't the music or like the artistry, it's other stuff. And Candace is actually having the best time of her life. It's not just pure misery. She's having a ton of fun, and even the difficult parts are very exciting for her because she feels very alive. So I hope they'll get that out of it, but I also hope that they will be kind of emboldened to either support people who are having a hard time in the public eye, or to actually themselves put themselves forward and speak up when something's not right, because a lot of what Candace goes through in the second book that's very difficult is that she feels alone in being the one to speak out. And once people join her, then she can start making real change. So I hope it really inspires a lot of people.
I think a lot of our readers will definitely relate to the journey that Candace goes on, and hopefully it does inspire them as well. What are your own feelings about the industry?
I have utmost respect for the K-pop industry, and it's just dazzling to see how much new, amazing music comes out and how much the idols are artists. You know, again, it's not mutually exclusive. And I think the efforts to talk about mental health and diversity in K-pop is really positive, and I think it's already going in a really great direction. And I think what we see in the future, the near future, is going to be really different. And I definitely don't want my books to kind of feel like, oh, this is what the K-pop industry should be, because, you know, I am an outsider and I just respect it from a distance, um, you know, to the utmost. But I think in general, just having a little bit more diversity in what constitutes a K-pop band could be really great, especially because the fandom is so international and so diverse. And I think K-pop in general has been trying to go towards K-pop isn't that different from pop. It's just music that happens to be partially or mostly in Korean. But that doesn't mean that everyone has to be from Korea. We've already seen that with, you know, stars from other parts of Asia. And I think that, you know, loosening the molds of what K-pop can look like will be really great. We can still have really great groups that look very conventional, because that is something we all love. But I think the door can be widened a little bit more widely, especially from the biggest K-pop labels. And I think we're definitely going to get that in the future.
I agree. I think we've made a lot of stride in the last few years in K-pop alone, and now we're seeing more Korean entertainment being accepted in the media more than ever. So you mentioned a lot of K-pop groups in the books. What groups are you a fan of?
Oh gosh, so many. Well, I have to say, just because I'm a little bit older than my readers, my kind of first blush with K-pop was really in the 21 Girls' Generation Big Bang era, so I will always be a little more loyal to that era. But also, right now, the group I listen to most is Blackpink. I love Twice. Red Velvet, I think, maybe is my favorite kind of, you know, currently active group. I love ITZY. ITZY was a huge inspiration just because I feel like that's the sort of attitude that Candace would have in a group, a very ITZY-like attitude. I also love aespa. That they debuted right around the time I was starting to write K-pop Revolution, and that kind of reminded me of Candace's group, the Girls, their debut, and the fact that it was from a big company. They had all the resources, all the high production value, and kind of a lot of expectations and pressure as a result. And they handled it amazingly, and they were also a big sort of inspiration. But yeah, I have so many.
Well, we love those groups here too. So can you tease the audience with a sentence from the book?
Oh, sure. So from K-Pop Revolution, I will actually just read the very first sentence, because this book picks up literally right where the first book left off. So this is kind of what's going through Candace's head. All right, chapter 1. Here's the thing about blowing up your own life. The moment the bomb has left your hand and you're watching it make a slow motion arc through the air, you feel euphoric. It's a thrill, a fountain of fireworks behind your eyes, to say goodbye to the reality you once knew. So that just kind of gets at the fact that she has thrown a metaphorical bomb at her life and at the whole K-pop industry, and there's no going back. That's kind of the tone of K-pop Revolution, just like you can actually make consequential decisions that really affect the rest of your life and affect a lot of other people. And I think that's kind of the core of coming of age, you know, that the things that you do actually matter.
An explosive opening for an explosive book.
Yes, thank you.
Do you have anything else upcoming?
So, other than K-Pop Revolution, which comes out April 5th, I'm working on an adult novel that has nothing to do with K-pop. It's the book I've been working on for maybe 10 years. It's huge. It's a little too long right now, so I'm rewriting it. And I'm also really excited to be working on a couple of TV pilots on spec. But yeah, that's really it.
I'm excited for you, and once your book comes out, 10 years, I'm quite excited to hear about it.
Oh, good. Yes, I hope it won't take that much longer to be on shelves.
But for the books that are out now and the one coming up, out April 5th, where can we find your books to buy?
You can find them wherever books are sold. K-Pop Confidential is available now, and then K-Pop Revolution is available April 5th. And this is actually the Brazilian edition because I ran out of American editions. But yeah, and hopefully they'll both be in your language wherever you're watching from.
And where can we find you on social media?
So I'm most active on Instagram, and my Instagram handle is a little weird. It's Stepephan, Stepephan. I think I just carried it over from my old, screen names from high school. And then I'm at Stephen M. Lee on Twitter.
All right, thank you so much, Stephen. I know our audience is going to love your book, and I can't wait for everyone to follow Candace on her K-pop journey.
Thank you, Gemma. This was so great. I'm so happy to be on Kpop-TV.
My guest today has been author Stephen Lee with his books, K-Pop Confidential and its sequel, K-Pop Revolution. You can find us with more conversations with authors at 24hourkpop.com. I'm Gemma for the Kpop-TV Entertainment Network. I'll see you next time.